Ron Paul. He's the chairman of the House Domestic Monetary and Technology Subcommittee, one of the top Republicans on the House Financial Services Committee. That means he has a say on whether this deal happens. He's coming to us straight from a hearing, by the way, on the Fed's role in creating or not creating jobs, which, of course, we're going to be talking about. Mr. Paul, let me start with this deal. What do you think? Is it acceptable that America's great market, the greatest in the world, would have a 60% ownership in Germany or the Netherlands?
Sure, I think so. I mean, if we believe in globalism and if you believe in free markets, we shouldn't be afraid of people investing here, and we certainly should be investing elsewhere. The big thing is get away from the subsidies. We'd like to see a function where the federal government isn't artificially giving us interest rates and interfering with regulations and taxes. But as far as doing deals across borders, I would just assume see very, very little regulation of that. So
if this were the Dubai Stock Exchange, or let's say the Saudi Arabian Stock Exchange, would you also be for it, or does it matter where the buyer comes from?
That gets a little mixed up. That's sort of like saying the Federal Reserve is part of the free market system and that they should enjoy the same rights and principles as the free market. So no, once you get into central banking and they own it and government owns it, then I think you have to look at things more carefully. But if it's a true business interest in investment, right, that is where I would like to see.
But what I guess I'm saying is, does it matter what country the company comes from? I mean, because it's Germany, is it more known to us and therefore more likely to be met with that you're going to support it than it would if it were coming from a China or a Middle Eastern country that are more stereotypically scary in the public eye?
No, the broader the better, and the ones that are controversial, if they fit these requirements of making a real business decision, that's actually helpful to the companies, to the countries that are seen as, less friendly. I would say we should have done this a long time ago with Cuba, and we'd have been a lot better off. But no, we stay out of Cuba, and for years we stayed away from China, but we get along with China a lot better now. I mean, they're our banker, and they loan us all that money, and they pay for our debt, so they allow us to live beyond our means. So I don't think bad things necessarily come just because we deal with these other countries. It's just that I want to avoid any special benefits, again, from the government. All right, so you're in favor of this one. And now let me bring in Steve Leisman, Congressman Paul, because he had a couple of questions based on your hearings this morning. Steve. Okay.
Congressman, good afternoon.
Hi, Steve.
I want to get to your findings about the Fed and unemployment, but first I want to get to a procedural question which is out there. We understand you did not invite the Federal Reserve to this hearing. Why was that the case?
Well, it's the first hearing, and I know that the Federal Reserve Board chairman does not come to subcommittees, and I know that he's coming here, just in a couple weeks. And although he presents his report to my subcommittee, it's always presented to the full committee. So therefore, I wanted to lay the groundwork at this first hearing that we've ever had, and the first time I think this committee ever seriously had a discussion about monetary policy. I wanted to draw attention to the connection between the Federal Reserve, the business cycle, and therefore the recessions. If you understand the Fed, if you understand the business cycle, you understand why we have recession, then you get to the bottom of why we have unemployment. And that's why we should never exclude the Fed when we talk about unemployment. For years, they've been getting credit for saying, oh, there's a recession. The Fed is to get us out of the recession. Well, nobody believes that anymore, and I wanted to emphasize that connection.
So this was not a fact-finding hearing as much as this was a way for you to make a point?
It was intended to open up the door to the discussion and the challenge to the Federal Reserve, because they are doing something they can't do. They're doing central economic planning, and it's very serious because they are a chief perpetuator of unemployment. So that's why I saw the importance of it.
Could you then expand on what the findings were of the hearing today, the Fed's role in unemployment?
Why they're the chief?
Because the Fed chairman said that he thinks the monetary policy, specifically the QE, the quantitative easing, may have created 3 million jobs.
Yeah. How come we have so many less jobs now than we did even 3 years ago? Yeah, there's it's estimated more like 1 million jobs have been created. But we also spent $4 trillion. And some of these jobs aren't necessarily going to be long-lasting jobs. Some of these jobs are jobs on Wall Street in the banks. But the average person isn't better off. I mean, they're still losing their houses, and the mortgages are in shambles, and jobs are law. So to brag about this recovery after $4 trillion, boy, that's not much to brag about. I think the Fed failed on stable prices, and they totally failed on unemployment. So if they have a mandate to create full employment, I don't know how they could brag about that and say that they have control of things.
All right, Congressman Paul, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Sure
Always
thing.
good to talk to you.